All right, hello everyone. So excited to have you here as part of this session today. I'm going to go ahead and get us started by welcoming you to the Casa, UCLA, CCEE, Advancing Equity in an Era of Crisis webinar series. The California Association of African American Superintendents and Administrators, which is what CAAASA stands for, and the University of California, Los Angeles Center for the Transformation of Schools put this project together to support equity in virtual learning as we all shelter in place to prevent the spread of COVID-19. This work has been made possible by the generous support of the California Collaborative for Educational Excellence, or CCEE, and we are grateful for their partnership on behalf of California's K-12 public school students. At the end of our live session today, I'm going to ask you to complete a survey to evaluate our time together. If you're watching a recording after our earlier conversation, please complete the survey as well. So about 5 minutes before the end of today's session, I'll go ahead and I'll put the survey link in the chat. Today you'll find, you'll find the links to the survey in the chat feed, and we'll do that right as it's wrapping up. And what I will say about today and how we actually use the chat, I see a couple of you have your hands raised. What we're actually going to do is, after we get into the session a bit and have some additional introductions to the actual session, I'm going to ask you at certain points to be able to contribute questions in the chat if you wouldn't mind writing them down. So I won't be unmuting people to articulate the questions, but please put them into the chat. And then what the reason why we want to keep that monitored is because there are a lot of us on the session, and monitoring the chat can get to be a bit difficult. So I will articulate some questions from the chat, but if you don't have your question addressed today, please know that I will also be sharing the web address for the series at the end of the session. And on that website, you'll be able to navigate to the link to today's session, and there'll be a link on there that will include the resources from today's session and also provide you with an opportunity to ask follow-up questions. And we definitely encourage you to make use of that, because we want you, if your question is not addressed today, to have an opportunity to have it addressed later. And so I want to definitely be able to welcome you to this session, and also to welcome you, Dr. Barbara Nemko and Dr. Judy White, who are our facilitators today. The session title is Advocating for Everyone, Assisting Students with Technology Access While They're Sheltered in Place. So I'm going to actually turn it over to you, Dr. Nemko and Dr. White, to be able to introduce yourselves, and then we'll transition into fielding some questions from the participants, if that sounds okay.
Thank you, Autumn. That sounds great. Hello, everybody. I'm Barbara Nemko, and I am the County Superintendent of Schools in NAPA, a position I have held for the last 24 years, which I find very hard to believe how 24 years could go by so quickly. Started as a second grade teacher in New York City, long time ago, very long time ago, and love what I do right now. I am particularly excited to be here because the Napa County Office of Education has been a partner with CASA in the Professional Learning Network for the last couple of years. And we were involved in the writing of the report. And I am happy to say that one of the last exciting things that I did before we all got told to stay home was to present at the CASA conference in Sacramento in March. So I'm so glad that we squeezed that one in.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Dr. Judy White, and I serve as the Riverside County Superintendent of Schools. This is my 42nd year in the field of education. I have been in so many chairs, but serving as a Riverside County Superintendent is one of the best. I feel that every step along the way, from teacher, principal, assistant superintendent, and the like, all led to this position. And I'm excited about being here. I know that our topic is about advocating for everyone assisting students with technology, and we are prepared to discuss this. But I want you to know, on March the 9th, right before CASA, that week during CASA, the governor and the state superintendent did call all 58 county superintendents to his council to speak with us. And the two main things that were shared was feeding of the students and distance learning. And so we were given a directive that this was not optional, but this is what was expected. So for the last 5 weeks, we have been working on that, and I'm just glad to be able to report as we further go into the conversation some of the things that we've done in Riverside County. Please understand that Riverside County, 430,000 students, 23 school districts, and then there's a variety of things that have been going on. but we're so glad to be able to be here. And I don't think you're going to find two other great advocates with Dr. Nemko and myself. And we've both been involved with CASA. I have served as a past president of CASA about 4 terms ago. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. So I'm going to go ahead and ask for those who are participating to go ahead and start to share your questions in the chat, and then I will go ahead and share those questions as they come in. But just as a general way for us all to start, if both of you could speak to, like, you Dr. White, you just mentioned a bit of it just now, but if you could talk to us about, like, what was that transition like as we started to realize that we would be sheltering in place and realizing that there is different levels of access for students and families to the technology needed to support distance, or, I know some people are just like, no, it's not truly distance learning. This is like crisis remote learning, right? So I understand that part of it. But to just talk about, like, what are some of the things that actually happened in the districts that you support as you were making that transition when it comes to thinking about equitable access for students and families?
Well, my district couldn't be more different than Judy's. We have 5 school districts in the county and a grand total of about 20,000 students county-wide, compared to Judy's population, entirely different. We have one, what we call large district, which has 17,000 students. And then our smallest district is a K-8 that has about 50 students. So we have this incredible diversity. I think, and now of course the county office directly educates the students who are in the court and community school system. So those who've either been expelled from school or are on formal probation. And in our county, we provide all of the public preschool programs. So those are our direct service programs. We also do career technical education, but we do it on the district high school campuses. So we are not the people who do all the rest of the education. We're just doing CTE. So I think when we realized we had to shelter at home, nobody could have imagined it was going to be this very, very long-term process. So initially it was kind of, oh my, what do we do? How do we do it? Because we're small, for the county office, what we did was make sure everybody had devices. That was not hard because our preschool kids have been using an online program for the last 10 years. So they all had devices. They have iPads, and we loan iPads to their parents. So it was just finding any 1 or 2 that might have needed it. And our court and community school students mostly had Chromebooks, and we ordered the additional ones that we needed and some hotspots. In the district, it was a different story. So our biggest district was already one-to-one in secondary, largely through a BYOD program. But the elementary kids didn't have that. So they immediately went out and ordered 3,500 Chromebooks for all the elementary students so that every student would have a Chromebook to work with at home. Then the next issue is, do they have internet access at home? What kind of Wi-Fi do they have? And we knew that we need a lot of hotspots, but hotspots became very hot quickly, very hard to get. And so when the big district realized they couldn't get all the hotspots they needed, what they did was very clever, I thought. They bought iPhones, locked them down, and distributed them so that only the hotspot was usable on the iPhone. That was kind of a workaround. So the second thing that they did was they got together teams by grade level in English language arts and math. And each team by grade level developed a few weeks worth of lesson plans based on the adoption in English language arts and math. So they were pretty ready to roll out. And then of course we had the spring break in there. So that gave them a little extra time, and everybody suddenly got accustomed to the fact that we weren't coming back after spring break. We weren't coming back at all. But then as I look at the other districts, different kinds of plans, much smaller districts. And so a lot of it was just collaboration among the teachers, more informal than the very formal process that happened in our biggest district.
I'd like to say that many of the things that Barbara shared are similar But of course, with our numbers being so greater exponentially, you know, it had more challenges. I'll give you an example. Actually, our smallest district is only 27 students in Desert Center. And our largest has more than 50,000, our largest district. So what we did find out is that some districts were prepared for blended type learning. Teachers had been involved in professional development over time, and they had one-to-one devices. And then we had some districts that didn't have the connectivity and did not have the devices, and the teachers had not been trained. One of the things that I did is I asked the districts, I said, we are a county, let's help each other. And some of the districts that were larger and ready for this type of learning adopted some of the smaller districts and said, we need help. It's nothing like a fourth grade teacher talking to another fourth grade teacher, but we did not limit it within the districts. We talked about talking to other districts. Many of our districts opened up their portals as well. Before, sometimes a parent would have to log in with a number to access the resources for the parents, but they decided to open it up. And so any parent in the county could just go online. Actually, anybody in the United States, you can go online now, and some of those portals are open for resources so that a person could access it and not even be a member of that particular community. We did an assessment because it's important that we don't just say, okay, how many devices, we need devices, but how many do we need? In Riverside County, out of the 430,000 students, we still need 90,000 devices. And that is larger than many, many districts and counties. But that is where we are, because there are pockets within our community that are affected by poverty and they don't have the devices in their homes. We are further ahead in professional development, and even at the county level, any teacher could go online and get a one-on-one tutorial about how do you use devices, how do you create these classrooms that are now Chromebook friendly. And so we have that down, and we have professional developers, but we don't have the devices for the students. We have some pockets near Mecca where they don't have any connectivity, or they don't have, even with the minimum connectivity, some of them don't have electricity. So we're through poverty. And that's why when we talk about the flashlight on the issues, this has come up because of the fact that now the demand is so great. So we're in Riverside County, we're going to be initiating a campaign called All for One. And this means that all of us are going to work together for every student to have one device. So 90,000 is a tall order, but you got to start with one. And then you keep moving, and we'll be reaching out to other stakeholders and partners. But we can't wait, because in Riverside County, you have to remember that it was the public health officer that closed our schools. So that has a different, it's a different situation when you have an order from the public health department. Of course, your governor, whatever the governor says we have to do, but because of the uniqueness in Riverside County, where we have more cases that have been identified, as well as about 100 deaths in our own county, then our public health department has to have a little bit more restrictions on our behavior. And so, that means that we have a greater need for devices, because more than likely we will not be coming back into a brick and mortar building for several months.
Thank you both so much for sharing that. And I know this is a question that I have also, and that's been articulated in the chat, is identifying that there are, even, you know, when we try to make sure the resources are there and the Chromebooks are distributed, there are still challenges, like you just mentioned, around, you know, like internet access and access to electricity and things like that. What are some things that you're thinking about in your district, or that you may already be doing, to make sure that those learners have access to ongoing learning despite their lack of access to the technology?
Well, obviously, before there were devices, there was paper. And so in our little districts that are quite rural and they have devices, they just don't always have connectivity, that's what they did. They're sending home paper and pencil packets to students. But what I think that makes me really happy, if one can say happy when you haven't had a haircut in 3 months, and you look awful, what makes me happy is the notion that we are finally spotlighting this issue in a way that can be fixed. Before, we referred to it, we knew it was there, but it's sort of kind of hidden underground. And now it has clearly picked its head up out of the sand and said, look at me, this isn't working. How are we going to do this? So that's, I think, very positive, with the governor giving devices and a lot of companies helping out with devices and communities coming together and raising money. So I think this is probably the best chance we have had in the last few decades to at least begin to close the digital divide. The achievement gap, there's a lot to do there too, but it's a great first step. The second thing is, we have always known that as the home of Silicon Valley, California was very, very behind other states in really using the digital tools and resources. And there are a variety of reasons for that, but this is the chance, because we don't have a choice, for teachers to see and parents to see and administrators to see how valuable these kinds of tools can be. In terms of motivation and engagement and interactivity, you can't beat some of the things that are available. And with all the major publishing companies opening up everything at no cost to schools and to parents at home, people have a chance to experience it. And I think about some of the things that you can do digitally that are so incredible. You can go into a museum in another country, walk around and actually go up to a picture and look at it and look at a little part of it, and you can hear from somebody about exactly what it means. You can go inside the body and watch peristalsis actually happen. That is not what happens when you read it on a page. So I think we're going to see a revolution in how we teach. And I think that will be a really positive thing. We just have to survive until this is over, and then we can celebrate the revolution.
I think part of your question had to do with what do we do with those who don't have a device. And when I thought about this whole session, it says advocating for everyone. Advocacy, I read years ago, was adding a voice to a cry. That's what it truly is. So when we add this voice to a cry, we had to think about, well, what do the students have? So KVCR, which is a local television station, they reached out to us and they said, we want to dedicate some of our channels for learning. We're going to work with PBS, we're going to work with you, and let's get some channels going. So they dedicated like preschool through third grade, one channel, upper grade and middle school, another channel, and then high school, a different channel. And they had lessons that had been vetted that they're providing for students, because even those who don't have a computer, they will have a television. Almost everybody, they have a television. So we're using the KVCR. And then we also found out that 2 of our districts in Riverside County had stations as well. So we're doing additional youth work with their stations. So we're trying to get the message out so that students can get lessons taught by seasoned teachers around the standards from the television. So now it's about communicating and giving them the schedule so that they'll know if they need to learn linear equations, what channel, what time is that going to be taking place. Another thing that we're doing is we're going to be using the YouTube, because if you think about it, even the poorest families, they like the YouTube. So we're creating some lessons that we're going to open up a YouTube channel, because Riverside County had a channel and we didn't even know, or they had the capabilities, but it wasn't necessary to know that until now. So we're going to be doing some YouTube instruction as well as Facebook instruction. And then the third thing I want to share with you is that I have a quarterly meeting with the PTA Council President. I've done that since I've been in the office. And so what that means is that the PTA, every PTA in their districts, they choose representatives to work with the big council. So it's a county council. And I asked her, I said, how many parents do we have? She said 50,000 parents are part of this the main council. And what she's starting to do is parent-to-parent tutorials, because some of the parents, even when they did have the devices, they didn't know how to use them. So the parents are connecting with each other, but the PTA is promoting it. We can't do everything. We don't have the physical time or the physical capacity. So you have to have the parents involved. And I told them I need them working with parents. So they've already started that push. And the last thing that I want to share with you, and one of our associate superintendents, Dr. Tompkins, he's leading this one. We had apartment complex managers reach out to us, and they wanted to be able to print packets for those in their apartment complexes that they knew didn't have connectivity. And so what we did is we coordinated with a different partner to donate reams of paper and gave it to the apartment complex. Of course, they have to use their own toner, but they know who lives in the apartment complex. So that's just one additional way, but people will come to you with ideas. And the main thing you have to do is say, well, how can I facilitate it? How can I make this happen? So those are some of the things I wanted to share. But, and then the last is the phones. And most of our families do have phones. And so there's some lessons that are going to be pushed out on the telephone as well.
That's amazing. Like just hearing from both of you, like, you know, what's happening. And I love what's so exciting is like, I think in my own work, I'm for the company I work for, I'm the director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And for the longest time, like you were saying, like these have always been issues. It's not like these things are new. It's just exacerbated by the situation that we're in. And I love, you know, for so long, we've been talking about the power of like family and community partnerships, right? And I think some people just like, okay, it's a nice thing to have if you can do it. But now it's like, now we really see the critical nature of partnering with families and communities. So I love to hear that, how people are coming together to make sure that the students have what they need. Thank you for that. One of the other questions, oh, go ahead. I'll give another question after you say.
So I have this idea that my husband and I have been talking about it for many years. We always say that the quality of the teacher is the most important characteristic of how well students do, at least the variable outside of the student. Mm-hmm. And we know that in some schools and some the quality is uneven within a school and between schools. And we talk about schools, high poverty schools, and we talk about other schools, and we mix up a lot of things, but we know teacher quality is key. So using this technology, why are we not contacting every teacher of the year for the last 10 years across the United States and having them send in their very best lessons? Because then you could have, say, your Algebra 1 class could have 50 teachers, each one teaching the very best lesson that they ever taught in Algebra 1, or one teacher teaching 5. And you could have this available to every school, because if you think about it, when we come back, what we're hearing is we're not coming back to the normal we used to know. And it may be that we're coming back not every day. Maybe in order to socially distance, we're coming back in an A-B situation with only half the kids there. So we will have a blended model. If teachers had this compendium of the best lessons of the best teachers, those could be assigned for the students to do at home. And then when they come in for the live follow-up, the teacher could answer questions and enrich and do whatever needs to be done to tweak that. But then every kid who takes Algebra 1 has the best algebra teacher, not, well, I went to that school or I was in this teacher's class. And it's a great time because the tech companies want to help us, so they could take those great lessons and help with animations and other things that make it more engaging for kids. So that's what I throw out. And if you know somebody in the tech company who wants to help with this, let me know.
I was gonna say, I don't know someone necessarily in the tech company, but I was gonna say one of my close colleagues was the 2014 Texas State Teacher of the Year, and there's a national network of state teachers of the year. And like I've had the opportunity to collaborate with them for 2 years in a row at their national conference. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll be able to have it this summer. Right. But yeah, they're an incredible group, and I think that there would be a lot of willingness, you know, from
the resource.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that idea. One of the other questions that came through in the chat is what resources are being explored for youth with IEPs and special needs during the pandemic? So if each of you could speak to what that's looking like for the schools and districts you support.
Well, I know our staff is reaching out to parents and sharing ideas and sending home videos and sending home different things that they can look at to see what they can do with their child. Obviously, it isn't the same as having people work directly with the physical child, but at least they can demonstrate for others. And they're also making sure that they're checking in with kids, that kids are feeling safe. So it's not perfect, but there are telephones for people who don't have other kinds of connectivity. So they're doing the best they can. to provide resources.
One of the other things that I've observed is that some of the special education teachers have been asked to create these schedules where they will be working with the student one-on-one, and then they have these office hours where parents can call in and they can talk. So it's about the scheduling, because you think about the students with special needs, they are on IEP. So some of their work that they need to do is very individualized, and then some work is group work. But I think my heart goes out to some of the parents, especially with depending on the diagnosis of that student, because they depended on the schools heavily to support their student. And then now it seems like it's falling on them as well. So we have a lot of our special education teachers working with parents very, very closely so that they will be able to provide modified lessons to their students. So I am aware that packets have been dropped off at the homes of our families. I'm aware that there is, if you go on the websites for even Riverside County Office of Education, you can actually go to a special education link and see lessons, see advisement, but that is probably the area that we have to work on the most. But at this time, I think everybody's doing as much as they can for right now, but we're learning and we're being responsive. And then there are places that parents can go to find out more information as well.
Thank you so much for that. There's another question that came through as a follow-up to what you shared earlier, Dr. White, when you mentioned that you were going to be pushing out lessons through like by using the phones. There was someone in the chat who wanted to hear a little bit more about that. There was a lot of excitement about you mentioning that.
Oh yeah, so we actually have a video team in our office, and we've given them some directions about supporting our families. So we started off, they've been working heavily on the KBCR segments, and they know how to do the storyboards and all of that. And then we've moved to the next phase, which has to do with the YouTube, opening up our YouTube. And now it's so funny, you know how they say great minds think alike? I was thinking, Dr. Nemko, about the Teachers of the Year. For the last 5 years, RCOE has had a winner at the state level every year. And so I had told my staff, I said, they're carrying this title. I've been in their classrooms. I know what they can do. So we need to make sure we get them involved. So that is going to be in the next few weeks, developing those lessons, developing what can you put on the phone where they can access. And if people have ideas, because sometimes when we're not a parent anymore, you know, my baby's 36 years old. So we forget from the user end. So if some of those who have questions or they want to be part of the team in developing, they can email me at the Riverside County Office of Education website, and they can be involved in what will that look like when it's unveiled. One thing that I do want to happen when we go to the phones and we're pushing out things, whether it's through YouTube or texting parents, I want parents who have discovered the solutions in their homes to be highlighted. I want to highlight them, not just the teachers, but who's going to be really there in the home with the kid. I want those who are finding success to say, hey, I want to highlight this, what I'm doing with my kid, and then we'll make those arrangements happen.
Well, I wanted to add to Judy talked about YouTube, and I love that you're using YouTube because I don't always use it to solve my problems, but because this happened when I needed to fix my garbage disposal where I got a fork stuck in it, I knew I could not call any handyman to come and help me. So I went to YouTube and I said, fork stuck in garbage disposal. And up came 7 videos to show me what to do. And lo and behold, this pathetic little woman who can't fix anything fixed her own garbage disposal. So that is what most people do use, and yet it hasn't always been what we use in school. So again, another unique opportunity to highlight what works in the real world.
Very good. Thank you so much for that. And I would say, because like you've said several things about yourself so far, they're like, no, you're not pathetic or anything like that. Look, you did it, right? You watched the video, you did it. So
I was so proud.
You are powerful. You are powerful. One of the other questions that came through is around if you know, for the students who are from families whose maybe the family members are speaking a different language other than English, what are some of the things that you've done in your, you know, in your support of the districts to support families whose, you know, whose language is not English?
Well, of course, we have translators who help us with everything that we do, whether it's on our Facebook Live page or the county Live page or things that we're sending home, everything is translated. And they help also if there's an issue with a parent, then somebody comes in to help translate. And a lot of our staff, of course, at this point is bilingual.
Yes, I think translation is one of the priorities. Originally, some of the information even that was coming out from the State Department was not initially translated. So you're sharing all this information and it's not translated. That is one part, but we also have very, very strong parent advocacy groups in our county, and they have taken a role of being part of the solution as opposed to looking at what we're not doing right, but how can we be part of making sure that the right thing happens? And so some of the right things that have happened has been the direct translation, even for homework that traditionally may have gone home in English, but now that the parent is helping, we've supported some translations in that way. And in some of our communities that were, they had challenges with transportation, we used the bus routes to go to the homes or go to the corner. So they were given a bus route. And so we took the food and the packets to them through a bus route, as opposed to asking them to come to the school. We took it to them, and so that has been helpful. We've ensured that there are lessons that are being taught in Spanish too for access, and we have staff who's calling, making sure, checking on people, and trying to keep the communication open.
Thank you for that. Another question is, which digital platform is the most effective in meeting the diverse needs of students? So I don't know if you want to speak to the digital platforms that you are using that have been more successful or effective. Is that something that you all, both of you, could speak to?
Well, one of my favorites is Discovery Education, which is now free for everybody. And part of the reason is because everything can be translated into almost any language. There are so many languages, you just click. You can translate it into Haitian Creole. So that's one thing. The second thing is that you can change the reading level. So we all know that students in the 4th grade may read anywhere from a 1st grade to a 9th grade level. And to be able to, at a click, change that is so powerful, so that no child needs to fall behind just because his reading is below 4th grade. He can still be reading the same lesson. Achieve 3000 is another one, where every child gets the daily lesson and it's at their own reading level. So those kinds of things I think are incredible. And again, because we have not used technology to its fullest potential, this is our chance.
I would love for technology people to weigh in. They could actually send some things in the chat room, but of course, Zoom, we're right here. So there's a lot of teachers that are using Zoom classrooms. The Google Hangout, I've been involved in that, the team meetings. And then recently I was asking some elementary teachers what was helpful to them. They said Seesaw. So I hate to say names of things and then I haven't used it myself, but that's what they said. So some of the elementary teachers are really saying that Seesaw has been very, very helpful. I wanted to go back too to say that we do use Rosetta Stone, and parents as well as students can access that. Now the 2 parts for college readiness though is the Khan Academy. I still advocate for Khan Academy because not only do they look at where you are individually, but they can, you can pace yourself. And then I really want to give a shout out to the College Board for their AP review, because the AP review program really helped the students become prepared for AP exams, and a lot of the resources there.
Absolutely. Oh, go ahead. I'll share after you go.
Since Judy mentioned Seesaw, also Class Dojo, Ed Puzzle, and Flipgrid. I love Flipgrid because it is a way of assessing whether they really learned what you were hoping they would learn, because they have to make a video that then you can see. Then if you ask the right question, then you'll find out whether they've learned something. Somebody also on the chat talked about Newsela or Newsela. I've never been sure how you say that. People say it differently. Duolingo is another one. So there are lots of really powerful apps that we should be taking advantage of now, and let's spread the news.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll say, like, my husband and I have 2 children. Our son is a junior and our daughter is a senior. And I definitely want to agree with you. They're both in AP classes, and the College Board resources that have gone out not only to them, but also to us as parents to say, okay, this is going to be different this year. They're not going to be taking the exams in school. It's going to be a different format. And they've been really supportive around, like, sending out webinars and making sure that we as family know what to expect with the shift and how the exams will take place. So definitely, but also too, like in my work, I've worked with educators who have used Seesaw and Edpuzzle and Flipgrid, and I just wanted to undergird that, right? Those are really great resources. Yeah.
I've asked our staff of awards to make sure that they vet things and they rate it. So you can actually go into resources and there might be a comment based on their use and having the technologists, the technology experts, as well as the educational research department. They've looked at many, many programs. So I do welcome people to go to the resources because there's quite a few listed, but they're only listed if they are vetted. And they've been used in our county, they've been used by our team to qualify them. So there is a list there.
So one of the things that we started doing is professional development ongoing for teachers on Thursday nights from 8 to 9. And it's live on Facebook. And we have different presenters each week. And last week it was a presentation by 2 of our wonderful teachers, our own teachers, on the resources we just talked about. It was Flipgrid and Seesaw and Class Dojo and one Socrative. That was the 4th one. And I'm seeing that people are sharing on the chat lots of resources that they think are good. So we can compile all of this and we can all put it on our resource page. I think that would be phenomenal. Tonight from 8 to 9, we have John Carippo, and he's the Chief Learning Officer at CUE, and he's going to be talking about Edu Protocols, a way of presenting information in person or online. So that will be kind of fun. But I think teachers are really getting excited about this opportunity for them to learn some things that maybe they heard about but never had time to really investigate. Well, now we have the time.
Absolutely. Thank you both for that. One of the other considerations is I know that we every day feels different and every week feels different as we get more information, right? And I know, like, even from, like, I'm outside of Boston, and I know initially it was like, okay, we're going to close schools and then we'll hope to go back the first week in April. No, we'll hope to go back the first week in May. And then this past week, I was so sad, especially having a daughter who's a senior in high school, where our governor, he shut school down for the remainder of the school year. So I know we're going through different things every week. What are some of your thoughts about, like, even though we don't exactly know when we'll be going back, and Dr. Nemko, you even mentioned too, like, even when we go back, it may be like A and B, days or weeks and things like that. What are some things you're thinking about as far as, like, what it would look like to transition back from sheltering in place to not really nothing will be normal again, but to what feels more familiar, I guess, is the way I'll word it.
I think we've all been in denial. We've all been thinking, okay, so we're not coming back in April or May or June, and okay, there's no graduation, but in the fall. But of course, our fall really has been August. That's when we've been coming back. And so it only in the last week or so really hit us that we have to come out of our denial, that probably it's not going to be the way it used to be. So we're just starting to sit down and do long-term planning about what it looks like. In California, a number of counties have developed documents that look at all the assumptions that we have to make, but it's pretty clear that you're not going to have 30 kids sitting in the same classroom with a teacher. That's not happening. And so if you're going to have to do half the kids, or possibly fewer than half, there are different models. There's the AM and PM session, but that requires a whole shift in transportation. And that I think would become a union issue, and because they're having to make twice as many trips. So in my mind, it's more of an AB, Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, and alternate Fridays. But if we have to even go lower than that, it could be an A, B, C, D, E with kids coming in one day a week and doing the rest online from home. But the problem with all of that is part of the function of school, particularly at the elementary school, is custodial care. And parents have got to go back to work. So if we're doing that, that's going to be a real problem. So we may have to think about the whole ratio of students to teachers and whether we can separate kids more if we're using professional aides in classes for part of the time. And so the child might spend part of the day with aides and the teacher goes back and forth among a number of classes. We're just beginning to start really delving into this in a meaningful way.
One of the things that I know is that the health and safety of our children have to remain the priority, even over politics, even over the economy. So what good is it to come back and then people start dying at rapid speeds? And so we have to be very, very cognizant of that. But I also know that whatever happens is not going to be one size fits all, because every district has different capacities, they have different needs, different challenges. And even some parents, they don't want their children to go back. They might want to wait the full projected 18 months to make sure. So there's this insecurity that some parents have now about the safety of their children. So what my recommendation is that we do is that we create this outstanding second and none distance learning opportunities, but we don't put a date on it. So what we would say is week 1, this happens, week 2. So it doesn't matter when it happens, but just plan it for, several weeks out, what the first 10 weeks look like, but it might not trigger until September or October. But you plan this distance learning and helping everybody build up to capacity, all of your teachers, giving them everything that they need, making sure that the parents are supported. I think the challenge, as Barbara brought up, is the parent schedules are not going to align with our own personal schedules or the school district's schedules. But you have to remember that the schools are the only place where they're forced in classrooms and class sizes. And that's why you have a greater challenge. In Riverside County, at one point, when our public health officer said, there's no congregating, there's no groups, not even the 10, not even the 20, there's none, then you can't be at school if there's none for students. And then we can't depend on the students to self-monitor. Kids are naturally, they naturally gravitate to each other, and especially the high school students, they think they're smarter than us. So we're gonna have, to me, a choice opportunity. And you might, if I was a principal, I probably would create a school where I'd have 5 options. I'd let the parents choose what works with your schedule. And then that way, if they get their choice, almost like when you had the year-round schools, you had A, B, C, D, the families had to look at and see what works with them. But this is going to be different. And they'll have to work together with their relatives or whatever, what works with your schedule, but have within a school some options that also teachers want. If a teacher's an early bird and she wants to teach just 5 hours straight in the morning, let that teacher teach at that time. And maybe there's only 10 parents who need that and 10 parents who are going to take that. I'm not sure, but I think it's going to be a long road. But I think that if we try to create the opportunities and choices without parent input, we're not going to meet their needs. And our goal is for students to learn, but our goal also is to make sure that we support our families as a whole.
And then there's yet another challenge, and that is many teachers may have compromised immune systems or may have underlying conditions, and they're not going to be comfortable going back to school.
But what if they're the ones who don't mind? If you can't go back to school because of your health conditions, let's really train you up to be one of those providers for technology. I mean, we have to meet everyone's needs as we can, but we've got some months now because I know it's got going back to June. We know that's not going to happen. And so we've got a few months to try to maximize the potential and build a capacity amongst those who are going to be serving. But it's going to be some choice. I can see even some schools serving one way. So within a district, you might have some certain schools that are more looking like independent study and charter schools, and then enough to give space to those who have to spread out. But it's going to be a cost. There is going to be a cost. And so we recognize that we need to have additional funding to make anything happen.
And that's the other big concern, because it's not like the state has got a lot of money right now. They're bleeding money and not taking in a lot of revenue. And so I don't know. The other challenge is that some families are leaving because California being such an expensive state, and if they were laid off their jobs, they can't afford to stay where they are. So that's going to cost us in terms of ADA. And some families may decide to go with some of those online charter schools because they've been doing online for so much longer, and they may feel that, well, you know, I can do that. That would, so there are, again, so many variables and so many unknowns, and this is all, I think that's why they call it a pandemic. It's a mess.
Yeah.
It's so true, so true. Thank you for what you both shared. And so I think, like I said, I'll reserve the last 5 minutes to kind of like, to share the survey and the website resources. But as we have like the last 10 minutes to hear from the two of you, like, what are some things that, you know, before the end of the session, like, I really want the panelists to know this when it comes to advocating for students who, you know, with regard to technology access while they're sheltering in place, what are some things that you maybe haven't shared yet that you really would love to share before we wrap up tonight?
Well, that technology is not the enemy. Sometimes we've treated it that way. Technology is our friend, and even at the earliest ages, not before 2, but by 2 and 3, a little bit, we've been using apps with our kids in preschool that have helped to close the 30 million word gap. And as we look at equity, we've always known that kids come to school at different levels. They don't come on a level playing field. And we know that children from wealthier families with professional parents come to school having heard 30 million more words than children who come from more disadvantaged households or English as a second language household. So when they get to kindergarten, if you're fluent in English and you've heard 30 million more words, it's much easier for you to learn how to read than if you don't, because reading is decoding talk written down. So if you don't know what the talk means, it'd be like my giving you a book in German. You might be able to pronounce something, but you would have no idea what it meant. So I think preschool, if we're talking about closing the equity gap, is so critical, especially for children that otherwise would come to school far behind, because that's about a 2.5-year gap by kindergarten. And the research shows that we never close that. We may narrow it, but we don't close it. And that's why over 60 years now, we've been trying to close the achievement gap and haven't done it. So I think that's a really critical piece, that we've got to use our technology even at the preschool level and make sure that all families have access to language and fluency.
I want to just jump in really quickly before Dr. White, before you share, some of your additional thoughts too. I think that's so important that you just articulated that, because I remember, this is a while ago, because I just told you my kids are 17 and 18, but even when they were little, I remember like grappling as a mom or as a parent, because there was so much, about like screen time, be really careful about your child having any screen time and like really limit it, and they really should. I'm like, okay, now we're in this other situation where we are using screens, and it really could be used like skillfully and effectively and with consideration to children's development and things like that. But I think it's really important to have that conversation, because it feels like two different messages, where it's like, before you were saying try to limit my child's screen time, and then now, this is the medium through which they're receiving a lot of their learning engagement. So I think it's important to have that discussion. Thank you for that. Dr. White, is there other things you wanted to share?
Yeah, there's 3 other areas I want to address. One has to do with the parental engagement. I think sometimes that we underestimate our families, and especially our families that are in low income. And that's why I almost am excited by the fact that I was born in poverty, that I was the first one to graduate from college in our family. Because if I didn't experience that, I would just always categorize people in a certain box, I think. And so what happened? How did I learn words? And it was the teacher, the impact of the teacher, but also there were certain things that my mother did in the home. And I think I still heard a book every night. So just because we were empowered doesn't mean I didn't get a book read to me. So I don't want us to have false assumptions. I want us to build the things that we know work with our parents and tell them. Sometimes people don't do because they just don't know. So we have to work with our parents to make sure that they're doing a little bit every week. Tell them, okay, this week do this in your home, and just so the parent engagement with the high expectation is one. The second is I want to also us to remember the social and emotional learning, because we do know that it's like the whole world has gone through trauma. So it's not just about an individual student, all of us, and they're going to be coming back to school with some of the pains that their parents were carrying through the pandemic, or just the news that's being displayed. So I just want us to continue to pour into our counselors, and in Riverside County, we have counselor workshops so that they can pour into the students even before they get back. And then also do things. We're still having art contests as a county office, and people thought, oh, they're not going to participate. We've had more than 500 students across the county for the art poetry contest, the dance contest, different group of students, visual arts. We're trying to invite them to not focus on the shelter in place, that they focus on what is the talent that I have within. So so my last comment is that I talked to you about this all-in-one, and if there's anybody that was listening, they want to participate, because every device counts, everyone counts. And so if they want to participate, they can reach out to our COE to be part of our 90,000 goal, to make our goals measurable. But thank you for the opportunity to share.
Could I share one more thing? Because I noticed that people are talking about the arts in the chat room. And the California Student Media Festival, which is the oldest student media festival in the nation, is coming up. Submissions are due, I believe, by May 1st. But we've added a category this year, and it's called Pandemic Adventures. We've all been passing around these cute little videos of families singing things, and One More Day is a very popular tune that people are using to make very, very clever videos, and that will be a category this year. So as you're talking to your kids online, tell them if they would like to make videos and share them directly with the California Student Media Festival, that would be wonderful.
Yes, those are so important that you both brought up. I think about my son's art teacher. She has created an Instagram page, and so every day she's putting out like art prompts that she's doing like her own work, and she's putting those out and sharing those with students. And I think my own son, who I feel so bad for him, because like of the four of us in the household, my husband, daughter, and myself, we're introverts and doing a bit better than he is as an extrovert in this situation. And he's just like, I need something to do. So he's been making like TikTok videos. And at first I was just like, it's another fad or whatever, but he's been getting so creative. It's been really beautiful to see like what creativity is coming out during this time. And so, yeah, so really cool to like, even though when we think about arts, we tend to think about art in a certain way, but they still can engage in that creativity and then connect it with the technology to be able to share, whether it's contests or whether it's producing videos or short films. It's just like, they're so brilliant and so funny and just so insightful. And it's great to see them, you know, like this opportunity awakening that in them a bit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's really cool. Very good. So I know we have a few more minutes left before I start to share the end of session resources. One of the other questions that came through that I think is helpful to talk about, and I think it was something that was already a concern before COVID, and now with our circumstances, it's coming to the fore again, is thinking about like teaching students about digital citizenship and how we're actually engaging in technology and how we're connecting with one another. So could both of you speak to like what that's like as far as like the supports that educators are giving to students and families around like how we responsibly engage with one another with technology? Because I know it seemed like right in the beginning when we shifted to using Zoom that they were like, you know, oh, we can't necessarily use it because people are Zoom bombing and showing up in spaces. And it speaks a little bit to what you both were saying earlier, is that we can give out devices, but if we don't give the training with how to best use it, then that's not so helpful. So if you could speak to like some of that digital citizenship support that's happening in your districts.
Well, I think we've always been trying to teach digital citizenship to our kids in school because it's critical. And I think I love the idea of the fact that kids are doing things and sometimes they are going to make mistakes. But I would much rather they make the mistake while they're still a student than they make the mistake on their first job and get fired. And so I think parents clearly have to be involved in this conversation because digital citizenship is not so different than other kinds of citizenship. Being polite and being respectful and not putting things out there that will live out there forever, that will come back to haunt you because your future employer is going to be able to find you online and you need to be careful. So I think we all have a big piece in this. And I think that schools are trying to do it, parents are trying to do it, and hopefully it's working. This is a good test.
I think it's about communication and citizenship for technology started, like you said, before the pandemic. So students were responsible for signing off, and parents had to sign off that they understood what some of the rules were, even for the students to participate in some of the labs or take home a device. So I think that the reminders are important, and I also think that norms. So parents have been given norms when they're picking up their devices. There's a sheet that goes home with them that they're responsible for knowing. And I just want the educators on the line, take care of yourselves, because most educators are used to controlling it, whether it's a classroom or a school site or a district, and we've got to take care of ourselves. So try to find something that you can control, bake something from scratch, something you control the beginning, the end, build something, do something fun. So I just want to get that out there while we're talking about the digital.
And fix your own garbage disposal. You'll feel so.
Yeah, you got to do something. Yeah.
Well, I would like to say that you have the most creative and intelligent and wonderful people who are watching this, because I am looking at the chat feed as it scrolls, and you are all contributing so much and such great ideas. I would like to take that whole chat feed, and that could be a way forward for all of us with resources, and you've given us real specifics and links to things. Thank you, thank you.
Absolutely. I've been noticing the same thing. And I believe that the chat is something that will be preserved, where we would be able to go through and see the different resources that have been shared. So I want to echo that. Definitely thank you to the two of you for what you've shared, and for those of you who are participating, what you've shared with one another. And I think that's the thing that's so beautiful about, that can come out of a really difficult situation and a traumatic situation, is the opportunities that we have to support one another and to be there for one another as we go through this experience and try to make sure that we're all okay. Not just okay, but thriving even in the midst of a difficult situation, right? So I just wanted to say thank you so much to everyone for taking the time out of your day to participate, for the two of you for sharing so much from your own experience. And what I'm going to put in the chat right now, you'll see one link that will come through. That link, the bit.ly link that I just shared, is the link to the survey for today's session. So if you wouldn't mind going ahead and filling out that survey, because it's really important to us that that the resources and the support that we share is responsive to the needs of educators. And so getting that feedback from you is really critical for us. And then this next link that I'm going to put through is to make sure that you would be able to go in and have access to the resources, not only from today's session, but also from previous sessions, and then for future sessions, you'll be able to go to the same website. So I'll drop that link in there right now. And that's really important to know, not only to see resources, but for those of you who may have articulated a question in the chat that we didn't get to address, or maybe a question comes up for you after the session that you want to share, that you can go ahead to the follow-up questions link on the website that I just shared, and you can be able to share that there too. So just wanted to let you know that those resources are available for you, and you'll see me pretty regularly because I'll be hosting quite a few of these. And so if I really hope that you have a really great rest of the evening, and just thank you again for your engagement today.
Thank you, Africa. It was a pleasure to meet you, and Dr. White.
Yes, yes.
A pleasure to share a screen with you too.
All right. See you later, everyone.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.